truth about the law of assumption depending if I told you that the law of assumption is a mystical manifestation, it's predictive processing. A fundamental mechanism neuroscience has been studying for decades under different names. The self-help community wrapped this brain function in spiritual language, but cognitive scientists call it predictive coding and have mapped exactly how it works. This isn't quantum moon manifestation nonsense. This is hard science. Neuroscientist Carl Friston discovered that your brain doesn't passively receive reality. It actively predicts reality to 100 milliseconds before sensory input arrives, then adjusts perception to match predictions. Psychologist Lisa Feldman Barrett proved that emotions aren't reactions to events, but predictions about events that literally construct your experience before it happens. Your assumptions aren't wishes, they're neural instructions. Cognitive researcher Annie Clark found that 90% of neural processing flows top-down prediction, versus only 10% bottom-up sensory data. Your brain operates as a prediction machine that uses assumptions to filter 11 million bits of sensory information per second down to the 40 bits your consciousness perceives. Ancient mystics called this assumption. Modern neuroscience calls it predictive modeling. Both describe identical mechanisms. I'm about to reveal 10 protocols that exploit your brain's prediction architecture to deliberately shape your experienced reality. These aren't affirmations. They're precision techniques for reprogramming your neural prediction software. Let's decode the actual science behind assumption. BODY10 numbered TechniQuest Part 1, the Predictive Modeling Protocol. You think assumptions are beliefs you hold. Neuroscience reveals something far more radical. Assumptions are neural templates your brain uses to construct reality before you experience it. Your visual cortex generates images before light hits your retina. Your auditory system predicts sounds before they reach your ears. Researcher Anil Seth demonstrated that you hallucinate your reality constantly. Your brain creates predictions, then uses minimal sensory data to confirm or adjust those hallucinations. You literally see what you expect to see 83% more readily than what contradicts expectations. This is technique number 1 out of 10. The Predictive Modeling Protocol. Select one specific outcome you want to experience within 90 days. Every morning for exactly 7 minutes. Sit with closed eyes and construct a detailed sensory prediction. What you see, hear, feel, smell, and physically sense when experiencing this outcome. Use present tense exclusively. I am, I have, I experience. Activate all 5 senses with precision. The temperature of air on your skin, specific sounds in the environment, exact colors and textures. Execute this prediction building ritual before consuming any external information. No phone, no conversation, nothing that inputs competing predictions. Your predictive processing network strengthened through repeated activation. Each detailed prediction creates neural pathways that bias your perception toward confirming evidence while filtering contradictory data. You're not manifesting magically, you're training your prediction algorithms to generate and prioritize specific patterns. Implement this protocol tomorrow morning and watch your brain begin noticing confirming evidence within 11 days that it filtered as irrelevant noise for years. Part 2. The Assumption Embodiment Technique. Visualize outcomes mentally. That's only 40% effective. Embodied cognition research proves that physical state determines mental state more powerfully than mental state influences physical state. Psychologist Amy Cuddy discovered that holding expansive postures for 120 seconds increases testosterone by 20% and decreases cortisol by 25%. Your brain uses bodily feedback to predict identity and capability. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio's somatic marker hypothesis demonstrates that emotional decisions originate in body states, not cognitive evaluation. Your physiology programs your psychology. This is technique number 2 out of 10, the Assumption Embodiment Technique. Identify the physical state associated with your desired outcome. If assuming wealth, how does financial security feel in your body? Shoulders back, breathing deep, movements unhurried. If assuming confidence, what's your posture, your gait, your facial expression? Spend 15 minutes daily embodying this physical state with exaggerated precision. Walk how you'd walk, sit how you'd sit, gesture how you gesture. Film yourself if necessary to ensure complete physical commitment. Execute this embodiment practice in private before entering public spaces, where you'll maintain subtle versions throughout the day. Your insula and somatosensory cortex constantly monitor internal body states to predict your current situation and capabilities. By deliberately altering physical state, you're hijacking the prediction system at its source. Your brain interprets sustained body language as reality data, adjusting mental predictions to match physical evidence. Deploy this embodiment daily and watch your default behavioral patterns shift by 340% within 3 weeks as your nervous system accepts new physical identity markers. Part 3. The Selective Attention Architecture. Believe you see reality objectively. Cognitive science destroys this illusion. The invisible gorilla experiment proved that 50% of people miss obvious anomalies when attention is directed elsewhere. Your reticular activating system filters 99.9996% of available sensory data based on preset priorities. Neuroscientist Michael Gazzaniga discovered your brain's interpreter module literally fabricates explanations to make your filtered perceptions feel like complete reality. You're experiencing a tiny curated slice while believing you see the whole picture. This is technique number 3 out of 10. The Selective Attention Architecture. Create a physical evidence journal exclusively for documenting instances that align with your assumption. Set phone reminders every 3 hours prompting evidence check what confirms my assumption. Write 3 specific observations each time. Overheard conversations, encountered opportunities, internal feelings, external circumstances. Aim for 25 entries weekly minimum. Critical instruction. You cannot write anything that contradicts your assumption. Train your reticular activating system to hunt confirming evidence exclusively while starving contradictory data of attention. Your attention is trainable. What you consistently focus on becomes what your predictive system prioritizes in future filtering. By deliberately directing attention toward confirming evidence, you're reprogramming your RAS to make assumption-consistent data more perceptually salient while rendering contradictory information increasingly invisible. Establish this architecture today and watch opportunities, resources, and synchronicities appearing with 890% increased frequency within 30 days. As your attention filter restructures. Part 4. The Identity Reconstruction Method. You try to change behavior directly. That's backwards. Social psychologist Daryl Bem's self-perception theory proves that identity follows behavior. But neuroscience reveals something deeper. Your brain predicts behavior based on stored identity narratives in your autobiographical memory networks. Researcher Dan McAdams found that humans organize selfhood through narrative. Your brain stores self-stories that predict which behaviors are you versus not you, creating unconscious permission, structures, and constraints. This is technique number 4 out of 10. The Identity Reconstruction Method. Write a detailed third-person narrative describing your life as if your assumption is already fact. Minimum 1,500 words. Include your daily routines, how to make decisions, how others interact with you, what challenges you navigate, what you no longer tolerate. Use past tense. She was known for. He made choices that they maintained boundaries around. Read this narrative aloud every evening for 21 consecutive days, then weekly for 3 months. Record audio of yourself reading it and listen during commutes or walks. Your hippocampus doesn't distinguish between vividly imagined memories and actual memories. Both create identical neural traces. By repeatedly encoding detailed narratives of your assumed identity, you're literally writing new autobiographical memories that your predictive system references when generating future behavior predictions. Execute this reconstruction immediately and watch previously out-of-character behaviors become natural expressions of your assumed identity within 6 weeks. Part 5. The Assumption Saturation System. You practice your assumption occasionally. Neuroscience proves that neuroplasticity requires saturation. Repeated activation within compressed timeframes create structural brain changes that sporadic practice cannot achieve. Researcher Michael Merzenich discovered that focused repetition over 8 to 12-week periods produces measurable cortical reorganization. Your brain rewires through intensity and consistency. Psychologist Anders Ericsson's deliberate practice research shows that distributed practice beats mass practice for skill acquisition. But assumption building requires the opposite, concentrated immersion. This is technique number 5 out of 10, the Assumption Saturation System. Select one 14-day period for assumption immersion. During these 2 weeks, engage with your assumption through multiple modalities, minimum 5 times daily. Morning visualization, midday embodiment practice, afternoon evidence journaling, evening identity narrative, nighttime assumption meditation. Set 7 daily reminders keeping assumption at forefront of consciousness. Eliminate contradictory inputs completely and follow strengthen or weaken based on activation frequency neurons that fire together wire together. Saturation creates neural superhighways where previously you had dirt piles. By flooding your system with assumption-consistent inputs while starving contradictory ones, you're forcibly reorganizing your prediction architecture through neuroplastic intensity. Launch this saturation period immediately and watch your assumptions solidify into automatic unconscious prediction within the 14-day window, eliminating the effortful remembering currently required. Part 6. The contradictory data reform. Panic when reality contradicts your assumption. That's when most people abandon the process. Cognitive dissonance research reveals something counterintuitive. Your brain is more likely to distort perception than change core predictions, but only if you consciously direct the interpretation process. Psychologist Leon Festinger found that when beliefs clash with evidence, humans reliably choose belief over evidence if the belief serves identity functions. Neuroscientist Robert Burton proved your brain can maintain contradictory certainties simultaneously through compartmentalization. This is technique number 6 out of 10, the contradictory data reframe. When encountering apparent contradictions to your assumption, execute a 3-step reframe within 60 seconds. Step 1. This is the bridge, not the destination. Step 2. Ask how does this serve my assumption's manifestation? Step 3. Generate 3 interpretations where this apparent setback is actually confirmation. Example, rejected from opportunity. This rejection cleared my calendar for the superior opportunity my assumption predicts. Write each reframe in your evidence journal immediately. Ban the phrase, "it's not working" from vocabulary completely. Your brain's interpretation centers activate before your emotional centers. The meaning you assign determines the emotion you experience, not vice versa. By systematically reframing contradictions as confirmation, you prevent your prediction system from updating toward doubt. You're exploiting confirmation bias deliberately instead of letting it operate randomly. Deploy this reframe protocol starting now, and watch apparent obstacles transform into assumption strengthening. Evidence within 48 hours, while emotional volatility from contradictory data drops by 76%. Part 7. The social environment cures you maintain relationships that contradict your assumption. Social neuroscience proves this is catastrophic. Mirror neuron research by Giacomo Rizzolatti demonstrates that you unconsciously absorb the beliefs, emotions, and assumptions of people you regularly interact with. Your brain literally simulates their mental states. Psychologist Jim Rohn's famous principle, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, has neurological basis. Your default mode network syncs with your social environment's dominant patterns through automatic mimicry systems. This is technique number 7 out of 10, the social environment curation. Audit all relationships through this lens. Does this person's lived reality reflect your assumption or contradict it? Create 3 categories. Category 1, people living your assumed reality, increase contact to minimum twice weekly. Category 2, neutral parties with no relevant influence, maintain casually. Category 3, people whose struggles, complaints, or circumstances contradict your assumption, decrease contact by 80%. Minimum over 30 days, using vague excuses if necessary. Simultaneously, engineer 3 new connections with people embodying your assumption through deliberate networking, online communities, or events. Your predictive system calibrates based on your social environment's consensus reality. When surrounded by people experiencing what you're assuming, their reality becomes your brain's baseline prediction. When immersed in contradictory realities, your assumption requires constant effortful maintenance against environmental pressure. Initiate this curation immediately, and watch your assumption feel increasingly natural and inevitable within 8 weeks as your social mirror neurons absorb assumption-consistent patterns from curated relationships. Part 8. The micro-commitment protocol. You wait for the assumption to manifest before acting. That's exactly backwards. Behavioral psychology proves that assumption becomes reality through identity-consistent actions, not passive visualization. Psychologist B.J. Fogg's behavior model demonstrates that tiny actions create identity shifts that large actions cannot, because large actions feel aspirational, while tiny actions feel descriptive. Your brain uses past behavior as primary evidence for predicting future behavior. Social psychologist Robert Cialdini discovered that people desperately need their self-perception to remain consistent. Small assumption-aligned actions create cognitive pressure toward larger consistent actions. This is technique number 8 out of 10, the micro-commitment protocol. Identify 10 tiny behaviors someone living your assumption performs regularly. These must be actions so small they require under 2 minutes and zero special resources. Wealthy people check their investment accounts daily. Confident people maintain eye contact 3 seconds longer. Healthy people choose stairs over elevators. Execute 3 of these micro behaviors daily for 40 consecutive days. Track completion with check marks in your evidence journal. Never skip days. The specific behaviors matter less than the daily consistency of assumption congruent action. Your brain builds self-concept through behavioral evidence more than through thoughts or feelings. Each micro-commitment becomes a neural data point supporting the prediction, I am the person who does these things. These accumulate into overwhelming evidence that shifts your core identity predictions without requiring heroic willpower. For massive changes, deploy this protocol today and watch your self-concept shift organically toward your assumption. Buy for 150% across 6 weeks as behavioral evidence accumulates beyond your conscious awareness. Part 9. The temporal collapse technique assumed from a place of lack. That future-oriented framing undermines the entire mechanism. Neuroscience reveals that your brain processes present tense statements as immediate reality checks, but future tense statements as fantasy that requires no action. Psycholinguist Benjamin Lee Whorf proved that language structure shapes thought structure. Verb tense literally alters neural activation patterns. Present tense assumption activates different brain regions than future tense hope. Researcher Gabrielle Odinen found that present focus mental contrasting increases goal achievement, while future focus fantasizing decreases motivation. This is technique number 9 out of 10, the temporal collapse technique. Eliminate all future tense from assumption-related thoughts and speech for 60 consecutive days. Never say I will be, I'm going to have, or when I achieve. Replace with present tense exclusively, I am, I have, I experience. Catch yourself mid-sentence and restart with correct tense. When others ask about your goals, respond in present tense. I'm building a 7-figure business, now I'm going to build. Create a penalty system. Each future tense violation requires 3 written present tense corrections. Your brain's prediction system operates in present tense. It generates what is not what will be. Future tense maintains psychological distance between current identity and assumed identity, keeping your assumption as aspiration rather than prediction. Present tense collapses this distance, forcing your prediction system to treat your assumption as current reality requiring confirmation. Enforce this temporal collapse starting today, and watch the emotional experience of your assumption shift from Sunday fantasy to current fact within 3 weeks, as your language reprograms your temporal perception. Part 10. The assumption stress test framework. You protect your assumption from challenge. That creates fragility. Psychological research on antifragility by Nassim Taleb proves that systems strengthen through stress, not protection. Belief consolidation. Studies show that assumptions surviving scrutiny embed more deeply than unexamined assumptions. Your brain strengthens neural pathways through challenge and retrieval practice. Cognitive scientist Robert Bjork discovered that desirable difficulties enhance learning. Testing your assumption under pressure creates stronger prediction structures than passive rehearsal. This is technique number 10 out of 10, the assumption stress test framework. Weekly, deliberately expose your assumption to the strongest possible counterarguments. Write out the 3 most compelling reasons your assumption might be unrealistic, backed by real evidence from your current circumstances. Then systematically dismantle each argument using logic, reframes, and alternative interpretations. Aim for 500 words minimum per counterargument. Do this in writing, not mentally. Force yourself to articulate and defeat your doubts explicitly. Invite a trusted confidant to challenge your assumption aggressively. While you defend it, make them play devil's advocate ruthlessly. Your brain consolidates beliefs through retrieval and reconsolidation processes. Each time you successfully defend your assumption against challenge, you strengthen the neural pathways supporting it while simultaneously weakening doubt pathways. The stress test process literally rewrites your prediction certainty at the synaptic level through active defense.